Good morning, everyone. Welcome to workshop number 2 in our series of blended learning workshops. Thank you for coming along in person this morning, and hello to everybody watching from home. So in our first workshop last week, we introduced you to the concept of blended learning. We talked about why it's such an important development for teaching here at Bond, and we encouraged you to rethink the very foundations of the subject that you're going to transform into blended learning mode. And our reasoning was that if you're going to introduce blended learning into your subject, rather than take the way you deliver the subject at the moment and then just add on a whole bunch of interesting new ways of teaching, it's more appropriate to actually step back a bit, go back to basics. What is it exactly that you're trying to do when you're teaching your subject? What are your intended outcomes? What would you like your students to know, to be able to do once they complete your subject? And then think, okay, how can I use this interesting range of new teaching technologies to help me to teach better, to actually help me to better achieve the learning outcomes that I'm aiming for? So last week was all about laying the foundations. Over the next few workshops, we're going to be actually introducing you to some specific blended learning tools and technologies. Now, blended learning is, of course, much more than just online teaching. It is the enhancement of traditional approaches to teaching using innovative teaching technologies. Many of those, of course, are online technologies. And so in workshops 3 and 4, we're going to be focusing upon blended learning online. So in 2 weeks' time, and then a month after that, we'll be introducing you to a whole bunch of tools that you can provide your students so that they can engage in high-quality learning in their own time while online. We'll also show you how they can engage with you outside of the classroom. But today's workshop is all about blended learning in the classroom. Technologies that you can bring into the room with you when you have your students in front of you face to face. So we've actually got 4 fantastic sessions for you this morning. The first one, Ron and Sarah will talking about the concept of flipping the classroom generally. Flipping the classroom has become a bit of a buzzword in recent years, so we'll ask whether or not it actually has merit, whether it's a passing fad, or is this in fact a revolutionary change? Is this overhauling the way we approach teaching? And then we'll offer 3 very specific sessions. One around the use of PowerPoint, something that we already use, but perhaps many of us don't use as effectively as we could. We'll talk to you about clickers, student response systems, and then we'll have an interesting presentation about synchronous teaching back channels. I love that phrase. It sounds so high tech, but it's actually a wonderful idea. It's a great way to get feedback and responses from your students live during a classroom discussion or during a presentation. So they're the 4 sessions that we've got for you this morning. Of course, the structure of this program is that we provide you with some online resources before each workshop, and the idea is that you go online, you read a bit of text, you watch a few videos, and that gives you the basic concepts that we're going to be exploring in the workshop. And then after the workshop, we give you some more detailed and more advanced resources to engage with. And then right at the end of after the workshop materials, you're asked to sort of reflect, just provide a very brief reflection upon what you've learned from that workshop and how you might apply it to your own subject that you're redesigning. Now, interestingly, we provided that reflection exercise for the first workshop, and the total number of people who actually completed the reflection exercise was, last time I checked, what was it? 0. That's right, it was 0. Which is a trigger for an important discussion, a very important discussion. And this is a conversation that Tammy and I were having the other day. You can create all these fantastic resources, but how do you actually make sure that the students engage with them outside of the classroom? And the challenge is we have to overcome the traditional mentality on the part of our students. I mean, we're already trying to change the way we think of teaching, but we also have to change the way the students think of learning. And a lot of our students do expect to be able to come to class, consume our teaching, leave, and not have to do anything else until the next class, or do as little as possible before the next class. Now you have to admit you all understand that, because that's exactly what you're all doing. You're coming to the workshop, great, fantastic, and then you're engaging with the materials, but if there's a little bit extra that you're asked to do, then if I don't have to do it, I won't do it. And I think there's one big difference between this workshop series and us doing the same thing with our students, that we're assessing our students, and there's a little bit of motivation there that we as workshop participants might not actually have. But it does mean that we can perhaps have a conversation around how best can we create, say, something like a reflection exercise that does encourage people to complete it. That first reflection exercise that we put up at the end of workshop 1 was very broad. It was just reflect. We'll try again with workshop 2, but we'll be a bit more detailed. We'll actually say, reflect on this, reflect on this, reflect on this, reflect on this. Just a few words, that's all you have to do. So in many ways, this is a bit of a running experiment to see if we can design a reflection exercise online that actually gets people to complete it without having to award them marks. At the end of the day, if we can't come up with anything, then with our own students, we've always got the option of saying, okay, it's worth 2% or it's worth 5%, and then you'll probably get a better response. Anyway, so it's all part of a continuing trial, a continuing experiment on our part. I'll hand over now to Ron and Sarah, who are going to give us a presentation about flipping the classroom.